All right, so that brings us to number two.
It does.
And I will admit, this is close in my book, because I think Jabari is right now the Vegas favorite to be the top pick in the draft. I'm on the record as saying I think Chet has the highest ceiling in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
But I've written this, and I want to reiterate it here. I think this is close. Like I'm and if I'm picking one or two, like I really am giving Paolo a good hard look. And here's the reason
Yeah.
why. The first time I saw Paolo play, he was a freshman in high school. He was the best freshman in high school basketball. I know that's meaningless by NBA standards, but 4 years later, college freshman. I think he was a better college basketball player last year than either Chet or Paolo. So
Yeah.
we're talking about somebody who has legitimately been better than those two at every step of the last 5 years. Now, and I ranked Chet ahead of Paolo in high school. The reason being was the upside. I thought Chet, and I still think Chet has a higher upside.
Yeah.
But Paolo has literally been the better player at every step so far. That's certainly debatable. You can make that contention, but I just think that between that and then the other thing that I really buy into, and you've probably heard me say this, is someone who's watched these kids for the last 5 years. One of two things can happen: you either know something that most people don't, or you get stuck in a cognitive bias because like you're trying, it's like confirmation bias, and you have to try and like really figure out what it is. And so for me, like Paolo is those three guys walking in the room, and Paolo is, in my mind, he's the alpha. He's the
Yeah.
guy who says, you know what, I'm the man here. Chet's gonna say it. Chet's gonna say I'm the best player in the NBA in 2 months from now, but he's not gonna like really assert himself between the lines like that. Like he didn't play like an alpha at Gonzaga.
Right.
Paolo walks the walk and he talks the talk. So, again, how does he fit in the NBA? He's got to become a better 3-point shooter. He's not
Yep.
really doesn't have the vertical pop to be a small ball five. He's a good vertical athlete, but if he did, that would be a different story. But I just look at somebody who's a prototypical, like modern day four man, who's 250 pounds, a playmaker, a passer who thrives at the mid post, who made really good decisions, showed a really big progression in terms of his decision making this year at Duke. Like when I watched him in even that game against Gonzaga, like he got going and got hot, but I remember thinking like, hey, that ball went in, but I'm not sure it was the best read.
Yeah.
And down the stretch of the season, I just thought his ability to read the game and make decisions had grown exponentially. So Paulo's number two on my board. But again, I would be giving him a long look. And if I'm in an NBA front office, specifically of OKC or Orlando, and I have access to all those resources and all that data that they have, like I'm bringing him in and I'm digging into him just as much as I am Jabari and Chet.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I have Paolo number one on this ranking. Again, we should note that
You've got him
Chet
number
is.
one. Okay.
I do have him number one. We have to note that we excluded Chet. We're going to
Right.
talk strictly centers at some point. And that'll include Jalen Duren and Mark Williams, some of the other bigs in this draft. But I have Paolo number one. To me, the offensive versatility is just a little bit more overwhelming than Jabari Smith. Like I like Jabari Smith's game. I think his shooting is fantastic. It is absolutely going to translate to the next level. But Paolo Banchero is like one of the best mid-range players in all of college basketball last season. His ability to process defenses, his ability to create in the mid-range, like back to the basket, fading away, pulling up, just every type of way you can score in the mid-range, he was able to do that. A lot of the times, Duke was similar to Sohan. Like they would run Paolo Banchero up to the wing or to the elbow, and he just kind of allow him to cook. He'd dive to the rim and shoot it. He's dishing it out. He's making plays. He was, to me, I think their best passer and their best playmaker. At 6'10", 250 pounds, like that is a real asset to have. Banchero's a guy who, going back, even before high school, like grew 6 inches just before he started high school. but essentially grew up playing guard, right? And he carried some of those guard skills with him. And he still has a lot of passing and playmaking, I think, to his game. I've comped him several times to Ben Simmons. I don't love the comp, but I love the comp in that I think he's a very above average playmaker and passer for his position. He's a guy who can grab rebounds and legitimately run transition and be like a good transition player. So, I'd like to see the defense improve a little bit. Would like to see the 3-point shooting improve just a little bit, but totally fine buying both of those things long term, knowing that I think the foundation, the base that he has as a killer mid-range guy who has really good playmaking skills at that position is very valuable.